The past year brought unique and unprecedented challenges for us all, and yet, as we have seen in other times of adversity, we witnessed the commitment and determination of so many Tennesseans. Both the public and private sectors found creative ways to work together and continue to provide critical services and supports to the many children, youth, and families in our state. So, as we look to the past for lessons learned, we also look to the future for new opportunities. Let's renew our efforts, refresh our minds, and refocus our energy. Welcome to Children's Advocacy Days 2021.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Kennedy, and I have the great privilege to serve as the director of the Commission on Children and Youth. I want to welcome you to our final day of our first ever virtual Children's Advocacy Days. We've survived without too many technical issues and hope that you found a lot of value in the presentation we've heard from so far. We're so excited to close out today and what has just been a really incredible week with some great presenters. But before we get into their presentations, I want to deliver some well-deserved and special thank yous. First, I want to thank the members of the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. Many of them have been with us most of this week, and as most of you know, they serve as the governing body for the agency and provide incredible input, wisdom, and guidance for all the work we do. We would not be able to accomplish what we do without them. Next, I want to thank the entire team at TCCY, many of whom you've seen introduce speakers the last several days. I want to thank them for not only for what they've done to prepare for and ensure that CAD has run as smoothly as it has, but for all they've done during the last year. Their flexibility, adaptability, and ability to think outside of the box with our work has definitely been one of my silver linings of the last year. There is simply no other team with which I would want to serve. Lastly, I do want to take a moment to thank the real star of Children's Advocacy Days 2021, Samitha Keller. Some staff changes at TCCY meant that we needed a new organizer and planner extraordinaire for CAD. Samitha serves as TCCY's Director of Statewide Partnerships and stepped up in big ways to coordinate this year's event. So not only was there a natural learning curve with planning and implementing this event, the added uncertainties of a virtual platform added to the work. I appreciate Samitha's positive attitude and focus on what could be instead of what we couldn't do. Even more, I appreciate her ability to talk me down and keep all that could be front and center in all of our planning conversations. I believe you would all agree that through her hours of hard work and planning, we've had a successful Children's Advocacy Days. So join me in virtually thanking Samitha Keller. I do want to go over our daily housekeeping reminders, just in case we have any new participants joining us. With our new virtual platform, there are a few housekeeping details I'd like to share. In order to avoid any accidental disruptions during presentations, you will be placed on mute, and your video will be turned off throughout the event. If you have any questions or comments for presenters, we would encourage you to use the chat box. These messages will only be seen by presenters and facilitators of Children's Advocacy Days. Additionally, if you're experiencing any technical difficulty, please send a message in the chat and our event facilitators will do their very best to help. Any available presentations and recordings will be available on our Children's Advocacy Days webpage. You can find the link in your agenda. Another exciting aspect about being virtual is your agenda. We have a new interactive agenda, and as you go throughout the day, we encourage you to click on the names of presenters or agencies. Many of these are hyperlinked and will take you to a website where you can learn more about our guests. In an effort to make Children's Advocacy Days accessible to participants that may be unable to hear or have difficulty hearing, we have enabled closed captions. If you would like to remove closed captions, there should be a small box in the bottom of your screen that provides that option. One of the things we've learned this year is that no matter how much you prepare, technology is not always your friend. We are hoping and expecting a day free of glitches, but we ask in advance for your grace and patience as we navigate any unexpected challenges that may arise. Speaking of technology, I want to once again introduce you all and thank Rachel Moore-Beard from Strategy and Leadership. She and her company have been so incredible at helping organize this virtual event, and we couldn't have done it without them. So thank you, Rachel, for all your help leading up to Children's Advocacy Days, all the work you've done this week, and all of the work that you will do throughout today. We will start this morning hearing from the Tennessee Department of Education. We will also hear from some fantastic young people, a few of our Tennessee state representatives, and Commissioner Brad Turner from the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. We will also receive an update on childcare in Tennessee to close out the day. The Department of Education has had to adapt throughout immense challenges this past year to ensure that Tennessee children are getting the education they need during unprecedented times. Commissioner Penny Schwinn was appointed to Governor Bill Lee's cabinet in 2019. As commissioner, Dr. Schwinn is committed to building on Tennessee's momentum over the last decade and plans to continue to accelerate growth through the state strategic plan known as Best for All, which focuses on high-quality academics, student readiness and support, and the state's strong current and future educators. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Penny Schwinn to provide an update about the Tennessee Department of Education. Dr. Schwinn?
Good morning, everyone. Hello. Good morning. It's nice to see everyone today and to talk about, I think, these incredibly important issues. I wanted to take this opportunity to walk through a few things that we've been doing at the department and ways that we are thinking about not just how we've responded to the pandemic, but certainly how we hope to do so and support schools and districts in the future. You know, one of the things that I think we have learned a lot over the last year or so in our public schools is that the things that we know need to be true for all children have remained regardless of the context and the scenario. We need to ensure that every child has access to a high quality academic experience regardless of where they live. We know that the whole child and serving the academic and the non-academic needs for every student remains critically important. And we know that there is nothing that replaces one of our exceptional Tennessee educators in terms of how we support children and their learning. As part of the pandemic, we've continued to, at least the pandemic response, we've continued to really invest in these three core areas, understanding the critical nature of this work and the impact that it has on students. As a personal note, I think that, you know, it's been a year since we've been addressing this, especially in our school systems. It was a year ago that we started to close school buildings. And at this point, our schools are open. And it's incredible to see the evolution and change that has occurred in our public schools over the course of the year and the impact that this has had on kids. We have seen during school building closures, our food service personnel standing in the rain, delivering packets of food to families. We have seen teachers who are teaching in person and online simultaneously. We have seen folks who have been providing services to our children with disabilities, our English learners, and many more in ways that they did not imagine might be possible or that they would never have to do. And I think that the attitude and response that we have seen from our educators and our school districts has been pretty phenomenal. And the same thing with our families. This is a lot of the research that is coming out, especially over the last couple of weeks with the consolidation of research, has shown that this has been a trying time for everybody. But certainly when we think about our families who are balancing their employment and work needs with oftentimes educating and educating their children at home and trying to make sure that they are balancing the emotional strains of COVID and the pandemic, we are seeing that they have come through for their kids, as we know that our parents always do, just like our teachers have. And so it is truly it has been a comprehensive effort across the board, and we have a long way to go. It's going to take us a while to be able to fully recover as a school system, and that is because it is a once in a generation impact. And we know that we are going to recover faster than any other state because of the work that has happened in our school systems. And I could not be more proud. When I think about what we have been investing in as a department and where we have been focusing our time, I think a lot about trauma-informed care and what that means for both students and for our staff. This is not something that I think we have handled and addressed as school systems in quite the same way as we have over the last 12 months. And in the department, we've been thinking about that from the educator perspective as well as from the student perspective. For educators, we know that self-care is essential to serving students and developing stable relationships with them. We can do our best work for students when we are taking care of ourselves. So the department in partnership with Mental Health and Substance Abuse Agency, so have a COVID-19 emotional support line that is open to Tennessee educators and school personnel. So there is an access point in terms of processing, I think, the incredible experiences and the challenges that many of our teachers are facing right now and have been facing throughout the entirety of the pandemic. We also know that this is incredibly important for our students and that the work and how we support our students is critical. And so we are thrilled that this year applications are open for schools to apply to a new cohort of trauma-informed schools. There are currently 73 trauma-informed schools in Tennessee. Those schools are selected to participate will receive high quality training, resources, and ongoing support to ensure that we are meeting the needs of children in the time period that we are in. This new cohort will essentially double the number of trauma-informed schools over the course of our strategic plan. And we, again, are thrilled with what that can mean for the services that we can provide to children each and every day. One of the things that I just want to make sure to emphasize here is that when we think about kids and we think about the needs of kids before the pandemic, we know that many of the experiences, the lessons learned, et cetera, that we've had over the last 12 months has only accelerated what we have always known to be true. We have children in all different parts of the state with all different backgrounds and all different needs. And our responsibility as educators, our responsibility as folks who are advocates of children has got to be rooted in the needs of each individual child and how we can best respond to them. And so focusing on this trauma-informed care is critically important for the department because we know that is one way in which we can address some of the most pressing issues of our time, especially as we think about responding to the pandemic. In terms of some of the additional work that we are doing and additional resources that are being provided by the department, we know that everyone plays a role. Trainings is incredibly important. So these were created for all student champions, including but not limited to teachers. So this includes cafeteria workers, bus drivers, support staff, etc. Through this training, attendees will learn and have learned how to maximize student, family, and staff success through resilience building and strong support systems. It is about equipping folks to be able to handle and address, again, these pressing issues of our time. And that is done through, first and foremost, educator self-care. Second, resilience building and basics of building strong brains. Third is comprehensive mental health supports. And four is connecting systems of supports. We know that when we do those things, when we are addressing the needs of the whole person, the whole child, the whole adult, we are having a much stronger opportunity and set of opportunities to ensure that people are getting what they need to be able to continue to move forward. I want to do a special call out again, because it was it is big news out of USDA that we are continuing the flexibilities and waivers for our food programming across the country. And when I think about children and what is needed for them to access a high quality education, we know that full bellies means full brains. And one of the things that we've been thrilled about, and again, resources that you can find on Best for All Central, is about continuing to provide access to free meals for any child under the age of 18, regardless of where they go to school, regardless of their age, 0 to 18, everyone is welcome to participate. And I think about children that I have had the great privilege of serving in the past and my old students. And I will talk about one of them just in closing and connecting that to the resources that we see in front of us. But there was a young boy, and I am just going to call him Tony, when I was a principal, that I had the great pleasure of serving. And I've been thinking about him a lot over the last year, specifically because he was a student who needed significant additional resources and supports from the school and from the broader community. And I think about what Tony's experiences have been over the last 12 months when those same supports were not there in the same way, and what it means to a child like Tony to have his teachers, his school system, and his community wrap their arms around him, even when it's harder and even when it's more challenging. And Tony is that kid who on Friday, would leave in a panic because he had food insecurity. He wasn't sure if he was going to be able to eat over the weekend. He wasn't sure if he was going to have access to those same resources that he got at school every single day. He didn't necessarily have books at home. He had parents who loved him. He had parents who were trying really, really hard, but they were struggling. And we would stuff food in his pockets. We would stuff food in his backpacks. We would work with local centers to be able to ensure that he had books to read, that he was in a safe and supportive environment every single day. But when our school buildings are closed, when we aren't aren't able to provide services in the same way. We think about all the Tonys across not just the state of Tennessee, but across the country. And we think very critically about how those children rely on our school systems and on our communities to be able to thrive. And what I've seen in Tennessee, in our school systems and in our school buildings, and with our teachers and our support staff and our bus drivers and our nutrition workers and our counselors and our custodians, is that everybody deeply, deeply loves our kids and believes that what we can do, even when it's hard, and especially when it's hard, is our very, very best for them, because we don't just have a responsibility to them. We know that what we do now is going to have an impact on the rest of their lives. And so I have nothing but deep appreciation for our school systems and those of you who are on this call, who I know have been working day after day, minute after minute, to ensure every single child in the state has been well taken care of, that they have received a high quality academic experience, that they have been supported with all of their needs that our school systems traditionally provide, and that we have been supporting our educators to do the hard work of ensuring every child has access to a high quality education. And so I know that I'm going to be turning it over to our amazing team at the department, but wanted to do a special thank you to the folks who are at the Tennessee Department of Education. It is not the same work as a school system, but I will say the hours have looked the same. And so whether it is light outside or dark outside, we have been working around the clock to ensure that we are doing everything that we can to help our kids, just like people on this call and this webinar. And I'm just very, very deeply grateful. And so with that, I will turn it back over with my thanks, my appreciation, and the note that there is more to come, and we are a long way from being fully recovered from the pandemic, but we are certainly working at a much faster clip. We are not hunkering down. We are moving forward and accelerating achievement for our kids.
Commissioner Schwinn, thank you so much for all that information that you've given us. We truly appreciate all the work that you're doing for Tennessee students. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, CAD 2021. My name is Jonquil Newland. I'm the Director of Kids Central TN at the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. And before I introduce our next speaker, we would, of course, love to highlight a bit more of our youth programs that we love so much. So here's just a little bit more from Southern Word.
To the next Red Riding Hood, they'll tell tales of what he did to you, how he swallowed you whole and told you, red never looked good on you anyway. They'll say we aren't like that. If you give me a chance, I can show you if you let me. Why won't you let me? They'll say they're sorry. They'll say, it's not my fault that my teeth look like his teeth, that my hands still remind you of the bruises he let bloom on you, that my breath reminds you of his breath, with that same rotting smell as if he was still picking out the pieces of that little girl between his teeth. They'll ask, what were you wearing? Whispering how red was the wolf's imitation. They'll tell you that you deserved it, how that's just what happens to little girls who climb in bed with monsters. Why didn't your mother teach you better? The question, why were you in the woods in the first place? It's like you wanted that wolf to find you. Because didn't your father ever tell you that the woods is no place for little girls anyway? And if you think they will give you the title of victim or survivor, expect neither. Rather, you will become the horror story they tell their daughters, passed down like secondhand wisdom, taught in the silence of too many witnesses. The moral will become, don't talk to strangers. What they don't say is there are wolves that pretend to be men. They won't show you the difference. And even if you take control of your tail, the price for their sympathy will be all the gory details of how the wolf ripped you open, made a feast out of your body, claimed you as his own. And they still call your story a fairy tale. To the next Red Riding Hood, if there's any advice I can give you, it's this. Wear red, even if they don't like it. Tell them it's a metaphor. Know that there will be days where you can't sleep with the lights off. Sometimes you'll wake up screaming, dreaming of him finding you again, and in that moment, your room will look exactly like the middle of the woods. And you're that little girl again. You could have swore Grandma was dead. There's no woodcutter to save you. Sometimes there is no escape from him. And I know you think that there are too many wolves in this world for it not to happen again, but they're right. Not all of them are dangerous. The scariest part about being the next Red Riding Hood is most wolves wouldn't call themselves one.
Now it is my pleasure to introduce one more student program that we love to see every single Children's Advocacy Days. So without further ado, please have another look at this year's Theater Bug.
Sticks and stones and breaking up my heart. You never learned that words could hurt, and it's tearing love apart. When all the doors are closed, open up a window in your mind. You can be right or be kind. Oh, wings can make you fly, but love will take you higher. Nothing's ever lost. Oh, wings can make you fly, yeah, but love will take you higher. Hate ain't worth the cost when love is free. Love is free. Whoa. One of these days, a fire's gonna start. You can use your heat to burn or ignite another spark. For every hand you hold, see the choice that unfolds in your life. You can pull down or raise high. Oh, wings can make you fly, but love will take you higher. Nothing's ever lost. Wings can make you fly, yeah, but love will take you higher. Nothing's ever lost. Oh, wings can make you fly, yeah, but love will take you higher. Hate ain't worth the cost.
Now I am so happy to introduce our next guest, Dr. Danielle Scherer. Dr. LeSure is an assistant commissioner at the Tennessee Department of Education. There, she leads a team that oversees the department's mental health strategy, trauma-informed schools initiative, and family resource center. Prior to her time at the Department of Education, she was the director of programs for youth empowerment through learning, leading, and serving, or YELS. There, she managed the mentoring program, Teen Cafe, and the K-6 after-school program. Prior to that, she served as Leadership for Educational Equity's Metro Atlanta Regional Director, where she launched One Atlanta, a teacher-led education coalition. The coalition successfully advocated for the development of Atlanta Public Schools Family Engagement Office. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. LeSure, and we look forward to hearing the presentation.
Thank you and good morning. Again, my name is Danielle Scherer, and I just want to say good morning to everyone as I work through my tech here. So good morning. Thank you to the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth for having us today. And I am the Assistant Commissioner of Whole Child Supports at the Tennessee Department of Education, where we will set all students on a path to success. By now, you've seen our strategic plan and are familiar with these three pillars: educators, academics, and whole child. So how do we ensure educators want to become and remain a teacher and leader in Tennessee? That all students have access to a high quality education, and that schools are equipped to serve the academic and non-academic needs of students? Part of how we do that is through trauma-informed schools. A trauma-informed school is one in which all school administrators, teachers, staff, students, families, and community members recognize and respond to the behavioral, emotional, relational, and academic impact of traumatic stress on those within the school. We have 73 trauma-informed schools across our state, which covers approximately 4% of our student population. To expand our reach, we have launched a second trauma-informed schools cohort where 40 or more schools will get the training and technical assistance they need from our department, so schools can develop practices and action plans aligned to trauma-informed care and responsiveness. To see what this looks like in action, let's take a look at some of our current trauma-informed schools where they show us what this looks like from a teacher and student perspective. See you on the other side of this clip.
Made me feel like I couldn't do nothing anymore. I was just a dumb little girl.
People make me mad, and then I got anger problems, so. Because I'm usually mad about something, like somebody outside like makes me mad.
The Common Quarter is actually a way for kids to reset. they can go to that corner and they can reset their behavior. They can take a moment to calm down, and then they can rejoin the classroom. That cuts down on losing instruction time.
Calm corner is like a place if you're upset about something and you can't, like, you don't really want to talk to anybody, you could sit down and maybe write about your feelings and maybe play with some stuff so you can get the stuff that you don't really like out of your head.
It helps because I don't have to think about my problems.
In most classrooms, the child uses a signal or lets the teacher know that they need to go there, and then they go to the common corner. Again, they're making that decision to go. Teachers can also cue a student. You know, do you need a moment? Do you need to visit the common corner? And then they do that. Most teachers set a timer, and they give them about 5 minutes to go ahead and calm down and, you know, take a breather, and then they can just rejoin the classroom.
I think I feel like more, like I feel better because the common corner, it makes me be calm, and when I don't get in the common corner, it makes me like really mad and want to push the desk over and stuff. So I just go to the common corner when I'm mad.
It just like helps you be peaceful.
It's one of the primary goals of the Common Corner is to help children recognize their own emotions, recognize when they are starting to be controlled by their emotions instead of controlling their emotions. I think that's one of the main purposes of the Common Corner is that self-regulation, because sometimes that's not modeled at home.
I would tell them try it, because if they didn't, they would probably be like frustrated and mad their whole life, sad.
Ahoy, mateys! Welcome to our trauma-informed pirate journey at Unicoi Elementary School. Arrgh!
way that you can be a good friend. So I want you to think of some ways that you can be a good friend. What's something that you can do? Okay, so we'll kind of go around and let everybody share out a way that you can be a good friend, okay? Let's start here at the yellow group. Emily, tell me something.
Cheer someone up when they're sad.
Cheer someone up when they're sad. That's good. Okay, Maddie, what about you? They get hurt and what? Help them walk to the nurse. Okay, that's a good one. Lucy, what about you?
Our cafe mantra. Are you ready?
No.
Hey, pirates! One group! We love you! We love you too! Great! We have a birthday today in the house, and it is Thomas. Help us sing our birthday song. Here we go. Happy birthday,
Hi, I'm Jacob Mills, and I'm a normal kid like you. And just like you, I think of everything I can be when I grow up. I can be an environmentalist, or a construction worker, maybe a doctor, or maybe a superhero. What I'd really like to be, though, is your choice for student council. Because I really care about the students and faculty. And I can help people see the true meaning of kindness. I would also like to help students with their grades. My parents taught me 4 things. Number 1, be kind. Number 2, be responsible. And number 3, be understanding. And number 4, if you do all those things, all of your goals are achievable. If you vote me, I will not only work for you, but with you. Because I think you all are just super.
Jacob, what did I tell you about flying so close to the road?
Sorry, Mom.
Yay! All right, this is a bonus one. Sorry. Gotta think. 3 plus 2 plus 2.
7.
7.
I want a bingo!
Hi, my name is Kendra Edmond. I'm the principal at Midtown Elementary School in Rum County. We have been a trauma-informed school for the past 2.5 years. Our school has implemented several trauma-informed practices. I'll share a list of those with you. Peace centers in every classroom. We have a faculty and staff peace room because it's important that the adults in the building take care of themselves. They need to think about their self-care. We've also implemented morning meetings in every classroom. They meet at the beginning of each day. At Midtown, we also have been trained on how to respond to students that are dealing with trauma in their life. We do not say to a child, "What is wrong with you? Why are you doing that?" We say, "How can we help you?" We've also talked with students about what flipping your lid means, which helps them to know that when they're beginning to feel like they're going to lose control or be angry, they can take the time to get themselves calmed down, de-escalate, and hopefully find a way to make themselves feel better.
The peace corner is for when you're mad, upset, or sad and you just don't want to blow your cool. When I come to the peace corner, I use some of the toys to help me get all the stress and problems off my mind.
Hi, my name is Brooks Benjamin. I teach at Midtown Elementary, and I wanted to talk a little bit about trauma-informed philosophy. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was how it's changed my views on teaching. You know, coming right out of college, you know, we were never really taught about trauma-informed and how that could impact our relationships with the students. But ever since I've gone through the training, you know, it has had such a major and positive impact with how I can connect with students. Because especially with my behavior management, you know, we're not looking at the students as, you know, doing something that is a problem. We kind of back it up a little bit and try to dig to the root, you know, the cause of the action. You know, what's probably possibly going on in that student's life to cause, you know, some negative reactions, negative actions. And I think that's so important because instead of, you know, as a teacher just immediately saying, all right, you did something wrong, you're going to lose this privilege, you know, we get the opportunity to learn a little bit more about our students and, you know, question them. You know, we have techniques to question them to kind of find out what could be going on in their lives that could be causing that problem, and then that's going to help us help them later on.
We use Peace Corners in our classroom, and it gives the students a chance to use some calming strategies with the time limit. Those few minutes can really make a big difference, just like it can for us as adults. I have had students say thank you and be really sincere about it. The skills we teach about empathy can go a long way in many aspects of their lives, and it really makes a good environment for learning.
For teachers, keeping your mental health high and healthy is so important because to take care of your kids during the day, you have to take care of yourself. If you come to school with no patience, you're not going to show them love and the patience they deserve. If you come to school tired, you might be grumpy or you might say things you don't mean in the moment, and your impulsivity is going to turn into them being impulsive and angry as well. So mental health means go home, take care of yourself, try to stop thinking about your day and just enjoy the moment, enjoy being at home by yourself or with your family or with your husband, whoever it is, and try to de-stress. Try to take time for yourself instead of worrying about your day outside of work.
Now that we are a trauma-informed school, I find that the environment here in our school has changed for the better. We take time to listen to our children more. We think about their backgrounds. We consider all that they deal with when they're away from our school. We create those relationships, and we try to let our students know that we are there for them and we understand.
Hi, my name is Jessica Eastap, and I am an assistant principal, and this is my first year at Jefferson Elementary School. And daily, I'm able to see the impact that trauma-informed training has had on our faculty and our students. Our teachers just continuously build strong relationships with all their students through this training. They're able to identify ACEs within their students and make appropriate referrals. Also, the number of discipline in classrooms has decreased. And also, when those discipline issues do reach our office, it's definitely more of a conversation instead of just an immediate discipline. Also from the administrative end, it's so important to get out of my office and go meet our students and get to know them and build those relationships so that if something does arise, I've built that base with those students and I'm able to deal with it in a much more efficient way than I would have prior to that training.
When students need a little break, they can come over here and use the things in the basket, a squeezy ball, a timer, just to help them calm down a little bit and self-regulate. I also consider a schedule a really important part of our day because so many of our children come from chaotic lives, and as a trauma-informed school, we know that lots of our students have high ACEs. And so knowing what's going to happen every day and having a predictable schedule each day is such a good thing for them, because knowing what to expect and having a routine is very safe and calming for our students.
One of the things that I've tried to do better of is learning the behavior and addressing the function behind the behavior, as opposed to providing negative consequences to the student for the behavior. So just really trying to figure out where it's coming from and trying to give them incentives that encourage positive consequences, rewarding what you want to see them doing and not always negative consequences, really increasing the positive environment in my classroom and really increasing positive communication with parents. Establishing a really strong bond with parents helps when I need to connect with them about a bigger issue. Getting to know my students better and building stronger relationships has been a really important part of figuring out why the behaviors are occurring and how to meet their needs to end the behaviors or to steer them in the direction that is positive.
We accept them, who they are, and what they bring into our classroom. And I feel like in my classroom, by allowing them to journal, I feel like they have a good sense of who they are and who they trust in the classroom. And I think they trust all three of us.
I would greet my kids in the morning before Help for Billy, but I never really said good morning. So I started, before we come in the classroom, we give a fist pound every day and I say good morning.
I agree with you. Sometimes the first thing the kids see in the morning are our faces. So I think when we greet them in the morning, that is very important. So I do a handshake that they come into my classroom with, and it's #chance. I feel like building a very safe environment for these kids and allow them to make mistakes is crucial into Jefferson Elementary and what we do. I teach math, so I say math allows thinking to happen, and I tell them it's okay to make math-like mistakes. And they even see me make mistakes on a daily basis because I'm human too, and mistakes are okay. And we are a safe environment, so we trust each other, and we love each other, and we care for each other.
So self-care is a really important piece to understanding trauma-informed practices. Teachers have to take care of themselves, know when to leave this building, and just go have some fun of their own.
Teachers, just a friendly reminder to please get your bags out of your boxes in the foyer. Thank you.
I just love those videos. Now that you've seen a bit, I just want to make sure I say again, thank you for inviting us today to speak on trauma-informed schools work. We love sharing this work. And now that you've seen what it is, I want to talk to you today about why it matters. Imagine a little girl in the rural South. She is spunky, inquisitive, and loves playing with her brothers. One day, she decides to run away and never told her story for why. Yet as she grew older and became a mother, others could see, hear, and feel this never told story in her moments of defensiveness. This defensiveness was seen as strength and a posture of resilience to her, but one of being guarded and overprotective by others. This defensiveness was not only a trait that she carried, but later her 12 children carried as well. So much to the point where it became a legacy. All of her children were known for being strong, but how strong is a strength that grew from an unknown ace? I struggle with that question daily as I reflect on that little girl. That little girl who is my grandmother. My strength is her strength, but I always long to know why. I never had an opportunity to meet her, but if I could ask her one question, it would be, what happened to you? What is your story? Before coming to the Tennessee Department of Education, I worked for an after-school program that served low-income African-American and Latino students. And there were times where I was met with that moment where a student demonstrated his or her strength. It could look like punching a wall, hitting another student, throwing something, or literally running out the door. It sounded like loud outbursts, stomps across the floor, and heavy sighs. It felt like pain. Pain, I wish I could have taken away from my students. Pain, I wish I could have taken away from the families that I served. Pain, I wish I could have taken away from my grandmother. It was pain. The stories of my students, families I've served, and even my grandmother is one of an ACE. An ACE is an adverse childhood experience. These experiences include homelessness, sexual abuse, divorce, or parents suffering from an addiction. But we can focus so much on the ACE that we use it as an excuse instead of an opportunity to ask questions to begin to understand what's behind your strength. I had a student in my after-school program who was in second grade. He cried every time he got off the bus and would drag his book bag all the way into our after-school program. Not wanting to be touched, acknowledged, nor spoken to, he would scream, "Leave me alone, you don't care, you don't care." I would see this, hear this, and feel this pain from my office every single day. I gave staff suggestions for addressing this, and I watched their failed attempts every day. And the day I knew that would eventually come finally came. A staffer came to me and said, "Please call his mom. He can no longer be in the program." She went on to say, "I can't anymore with this kid. I can't anymore," and walked away in frustration as the student and I looked at each other in silence, not knowing what to say. There are many moments as teachers, paraprofessionals, and administrators that are "I can't anymore" moments. Trauma-informed schools are meant to reduce those moments, not just for students, but teachers too, by doing these 3 things. It's important for us to first acknowledge that as adults in the classroom, you will experience secondary traumatic stress because of a student's ACE. Because of that, I need to have a routine for self-care as an adult. And as an adult, I need to have a de-escalation plan. And as an administrator, I need my entire team to be on board and to have my back. Therefore, everyone needs to be trauma-informed, trained in a learning environment for it to work right. That includes paraprofessionals, bus drivers, cafeteria staff, and yes, after-school providers too. It makes a difference. Everyone needs to be aligned to develop an action plan to best avoid "I can't anymore" moments. Let's acknowledge that this is tough. And that is why we have trauma-informed schools coaching to help individual schools create plans tailored to their individual needs for students and educators. Second, identify. Identify and label that "I can't anymore" moment. I had to decide as an administrator to label this moment of strength that a student was having as an iceberg. I see the tip of it coming at me, but I don't know what's underneath. In all honesty, there are many times where I did not have the right tools to ask the right questions of the students nor staff. Imagine not having the tools but having the intentions. The intentions of meeting this student and his particular strength was there. The intention of getting to the why, I didn't really see as important at first. I used to think I don't need to get to the why as long as the behavior changes, and I was wrong. The moment of my staffers, I can't anymore, turned into this former director's, I have to every single day. So I did what any good director would do at the time. Grabbed a table and 2 chairs while requesting a box of crayons and construction paper and colored with the student. In the moment, crayon in hand, I decided to wait for the why. Wait for the student to tell me and share with me anything that could give me a glimpse of understanding what is underneath the tip of your iceberg, because I don't know. I don't have a clue. My dad always told me, if you want to know where someone is coming from, be quiet, and they will tell you all you need to know. So after 40 years, I finally decided to take his advice, and that is exactly what happened. He colored. I colored. While he was coloring, looked like he started creating something that was a clown. And then I learned that the clown he was drawing was actually a superhero called Black Panther. So I asked him, why Black Panther? He said, Black Panther steps in and saves people. He's a protector. He continued, people won't mess with you. If so, he will beat them up. Not knowing anything about what led him to being brought to me for disciplinary action, I had to ask the burning question, what happened? Why are we here coloring together? He was coloring and said, I was minding my business and a kid was messing with me. So Black Panther beat him up. I was minding my business and a kid was messing with me. So Black Panther beat him up. I was confused. Definitely confused. Confused even more when he asked me, can I have him back now? I said, who? He said, Black Panther. Me being me, remember, I have intentions, but I don't have tools yet. I channeled my inner Mr. Rogers and said, Black Panther lives inside of you. He'll always be there. He looked at me puzzled and said, no, he doesn't. He's here, behind the front desk. Remember again, I have great intentions without tools. So I asked the question as best as I could. Really? He is behind the front desk? He replied. So I said, let's go. Again, intentions without tools. So he grabbed my hand, led me to the front desk. He went behind the desk and grabbed a Black Panther doll. He was right. That's when I learned that his Black Panther doll was confiscated after he used it to beat another student for bothering him by getting too close. I was thankful he explained this. So then the student, Black Panther, and I went back to the table and finished coloring. That's when he then said to me, my mom told me to not let people get too close to me because that's what happened to her. In that moment, I recognized the ace behind his strength, the ace that once belonged to his mom, now shared with him, abuse. We always say hurt people hurt people. Well, abused people abuse people too. Something I can relate to more often than I would like to admit. And this student saw it in my eyes and met me in my ace. And did what we all fear most as adults working with kids, had his Black Panther doll full of little kid germs give me a huge hug. And this picture to remind me to be strong, like Black Panther, he would say. So in addition to acknowledging we are going to experience traumatic stress, so plan for it, and learning how to call out an iceberg, we have to also experience inspiration from our students. As leaders, we need to allow our students to inspire us. So after that day, we worked really hard and ended up hiring a consultant to help us figure out how best to greet students when they came from school. This is an after-school program, so you have to remember that students come to the program feeling very tired and not wanting to be bothered sometimes. It's the end of their workday, so we needed to make sure they felt energized, engaged, and valued. In addition to that, we had the same consultant help us with Circle Share. So starting and closing our program in Circle to talk about how our day went and to learn something related to building community and healthy relationships became a priority for us. Then we realized, you know what? We have a Zen zone, some call peace corners. Let's keep that Zen zone, and in every single classroom, let's create quiet corners. So for the students who are introverts, they can find a place for themselves on one of our overpriced beanbags. Then students began to use this space to de-escalate, sometimes with friends while reading books. After this moment, we changed, we had progress, we had trauma-informed practices that were making a difference, as evidenced by our increased attendance, decreased number of discipline referrals, and staff retention. Everything was looking up. And then we were met with COVID-19. This is the last picture that I took in my after-school program before our doors closed because of COVID-19. After that, most students we no longer saw in the program. Parents stopped answering the phone over time. Some moved out of state and others became homeless. Again, intentions without tools. We wanted to help families, and there was not enough help to go around, or at least it felt like that at the time. I still relive that moment. I still feel that moment. I have no idea where this particular student or Black Panther is. So I hang on to this picture. This picture, like my grandmother, are reminders of why trauma-informed care and strength are needed in our schools right now. We discuss learning loss, but some of our students have also experienced a loss in care, which includes serve and return. When you give that smile or high five and receive it back with questions about your day and your progress, students can feel acknowledged, heard, and received. Someone cares about me, they think. Someone sees me and they know I exist. Someone loves me. That matters to students. Acknowledgement. When an adult sees you as a student and acknowledges that you made that important decision today to put on that huge bow from your personal JoJo collection because you knew that when Dr. Danielle saw you, she's going to say, you are fabulous. Acknowledgement. Encouraging words. Whether it is a small whisper as someone is completing an assignment, good job, or an annoying song you're forced to sing every day in class, it matters. I look back now on the annoying song we used to force the kids to sing, and at times it truly brings me to tears as I reflect on the lives lost during this pandemic, and I reminisce on my why. Students who I no longer serve, but the memories of the many moments where we colored together colors my work in education and legacy of my grandmother's strength, which I inherited. It all keeps me going. The question is, what keeps you going? Is there a strength behind your ace? What brings you light? What brings me light today is knowing that I am not alone in wanting what is best for all 1 million students across Tennessee. So how are we doing this? As I said before, a trauma-informed school is one in which all school administrators, teachers, staff, students, families, and community members recognize and respond to the behavioral, emotional, relational, and academic impact of the traumatic stress on those within the school. This is not a program or a toolkit. It is a way of doing business. Research shows the benefits of implementing trauma-informed approaches. They include improved school climate, improved attendance, decrease in suspensions and expulsions, reduction of student behavioral outbursts and referrals to the office, improved teacher sense of satisfaction and safety in being a teacher, improved retention of new teachers, decreased stress for staff and students, reduction in student bullying and harassment, reduction in the need for special educational services and classes, and reduced dropout rates. This year, we're expanding the number of trauma-informed schools in Tennessee. In fact, the application window to become a model trauma-informed school is currently open, and it's not too late to apply if you're a school administrator. Simply take note of the link on the screen here, which will take you to the application. If you're not an administrator, but you know of a school that should apply, still jot down this link and send it to a school administrator and offer your support in helping them complete the application. What's in it for schools that are selected to participate? Your school will receive high quality training, resources, and ongoing support as you implement these practices. When schools approach students through a trauma lens, they are better equipped to provide the educational, social, and personal supports necessary to help students reach their unique potential. The department is committed to supporting schools in their work to address trauma and will provide the supports you see here to participating schools. And just as the department will provide supports, schools must be willing to commit to participating in a 2-year process to become trauma-informed. Of course, what you see here is a simplified version of the expectations of participating schools. This work takes time, and we're committed to supporting schools throughout this process with a multitude of supports and opportunities for growth and learning. It's not easy. And we need more than intentions. We need intentions with tools. Practice and support using those tools. Measuring our impact. That's the work we are committed to. Please join us in this journey because together we can make a difference, one student at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. LeSure. We appreciate you being here with us today and sharing about this important work that our schools are doing. Good morning, CAD participants. My name is Reset Markham-Embry, and I'm on staff here at TCCY. One of our favorite aspects of Children's Advocacy Days is when we can get young people involved. I'm excited to welcome Elise Duggar, Associate Director of the Tennessee YMCA Center for Civic Engagement, and Lucy Pfeiffer, Governor for the Youth and Government Capital Conference. The YMCA Center for Civic Engagement is a statewide leadership development and civics program designed to allow students to experience the processes of government in a hands-on way. Each year, Center for Civic Engagement programs reach almost 7,000 middle and high school students across the state. One of these programs is Youth in Government, an annual conference designed to offer students an interactive experience with the state government. Each year, over 2,500 students converge on the state capitol, taking the places of our real government officials. Program participants can serve as senators or representatives, as justices and lawyers, as department commissioners and lobbyists, or even as press corps members. At these conferences, students make friends from a variety of backgrounds, engage in respectful debate, practice public speaking, and find their voice. We are so excited to hear from you, Elise and Lucy.
Hi, Elise, and thank you so much for participating in this year's Children's Advocacy Days 2021. Give our audience a little bit of an idea of how you're involved in the community and with youth.
Hi, my name is Elise Duggar. I am the Associate Director of the YMCA Center for Civic Engagement, and our program runs civic engagement programs for middle school and high school students across the entire state of Tennessee. In a normal year, when we have in-person conferences, we work with about 6,500 middle school and high school students from, West Tennessee all the way to East Tennessee. This year, we have transitioned all of our conferences to virtual for the safety of our students. So our numbers are a little bit lower, but in general, we work with a lot of students, teaching them to be civically engaged citizens.
Why is it so important for youth to be civically engaged, or at least educated about it if they're not old enough to actually participate? Why is that so important, Elise?
So our motto that we put on all of our conference material is democracy must be learned by each generation. And we really believe that young people can be better leaders in their community, whether it's through their future jobs, whether it's through being a public servant, or just being a friend to someone else, if they know how government works and how changes are made. We also believe that young people become better citizens if they learn the basic core values of the YMCA, which are honesty, caring, respect, and responsibility. So we work really hard to balance those values with civic engagement and learning about government, from state government to international government.
In just a little bit, we're going to be hearing from a student who has participated in a program called Youth in Government as well. So we'll hear her personal story. But for maybe folks who are seeing this or watching this, if they know someone or a youth or someone who they think might want to get involved, how does that happen?
That's a great question. So our programs, we run two main programs, which are Model United Nations in the fall, and then Youth in Government, which is our spring conference. Model United Nations is obviously international in scope. Our Youth in Government models state government. So students can be write bills in the House of Representatives or in the state Senate, and it actually takes place on Capitol Hill in the House and Senate chambers in the Cordell Hull building. And the best way for young people to get involved is to send us an email. Our website is tennesseecce.org. And we usually work through schools, and a teacher is our advisor, and they will bring either a handful of students or anywhere to 150 students to one of our conferences. It's also very easy for a student just to attend by themselves. And so we try and accommodate every level of young person who wants to participate in our programs.
Great information, Elise. I heard you say a semester and then a conference. So I got both. It might be a week's worth of time, but also maybe a few days. Is this something that takes a while for students to complete?
Yes. So our programming, while the actual conference is a weekend-long conference, Model UN is Friday to Sunday, and Youth in Government is Thursday to Sunday. In all the weeks leading up to that conference, we have pre-conference assignments and work that students have to complete. We have online training available as well. So while it is just a weekend-long physical conference, the lead up and all of the learning you do happens throughout the semester.
In your work with this program and with the YMCA, what do you think is the biggest takeaway that students take from these programs?
I think that's a really good question. I think that young people who come through our programs find, first of all, a place to belong. And they find other young people from across Tennessee who really, really care about making the world a better place. And I hope that they find a space where their voices are both heard and valued. A lot of times, teenagers in particular feel like people don't really listen to what they have to say. And we try and provide a space where both their peers are listening and the adults in the room are listening as well. So we hope that young people get a valuable experience where they find their voice, but where they also find that others value their voice.
Thank you so much for that, Elise. And as our ending question, I'd like to ask, besides the youth in government and the international, I'm sure that's probably on hold for now, but besides those main programs, what other programs do you think youth need to be engaged in or possibly looking at if they want to become more involved?
So one of the other opportunities we offer through our programs, we offer leadership opportunities. Our students, all of our programs are student-led. So every year we elect officers to serve in the next year's conference. So Lucy, who you're going to hear from a little later, served as our youth governor this year, and she was elected by her peers to serve as governor. And the same, we have a Speaker of the House, a Lieutenant Governor. We even have a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And the young people who are chosen to serve as officers attend our leadership conference that we hold in the early fall. And we try and offer leadership training, communication training, and even training on how to do fundraising, which will really help young people later on in their life. So we work really hard to both offer them program opportunities to interact with young people across the state, but also learn valuable leadership skills at our leadership conference.
I'd like to introduce a very special student that some of you might already know about here in Tennessee. Lucy Pfeiffer joins me now via Zoom. Lucy, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're going to school, and where are you from?
I am from Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and I go to Mount Juliet High School. I'm a senior this year. I'm involved in tennis at my school and several different clubs, but the one closest to my heart is youth in government.
Now, that is something that not is typically talked about amongst a lot of students as being their favorite in far as just youth in government. What made you want to get involved in that program?
That's a great question. I'm actually a legacy. My mom was involved in the program when she was in high school. She actually ran for governor, although I one-upped her there. She didn't win. And she was the advisor for youth in government at Lebanon High School. So when I got to high school, I figured I'd better go see what all the fuss was about, and I fell in love.
And you kind of touched on it just a little bit, Lucy, but obviously the students who are involved in youth in government get to run for an actual office. There is an elected official holding every one of those student platforms, for lack of better words. And you, of course, as you mentioned, were actually elected governor. What was that campaign like? Can you tell us a little bit about that, Lucy?
Of course. So I actually have run for office every year that I've been at the conference. My freshman year, I was overwhelmed and I lost they don't release the votes, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that it was a landslide loss. But I ended up with a clerkship position. So I was an officer my sophomore year, and I ran for floor leader of the Red Senate, which is basically the person who guides and leads debate in the Red Senate, which is our highest chamber. And then from that position, I ran for governor. My campaign for governor looks a little bit different than campaigns do in the real world, just because we have some certain requirements at YIG, but I ended up with some business cards that I passed out, and we had our gubernatorial debate as well, where me and I think there were 5 other people that I was running against all got to answer some questions, and I ended up giving, in addition to the gubernatorial debate, 2 different speeches. It was a runoff election because there were so many of us. So after the first round of voting, it was me and one other candidate, and we got a little bit more one-on-one attention from the people that we were asking to vote for us. And it was a lot of going around and having conversations one-on-one with people and finding out what was important to them about YIG, just because YIG is only one weekend long. The conference is only Wednesday to Sunday for us officers, but it really has a substantial impact on our entire year. And so finding out the ways that not only I can make their conference better, but the ways that I could make YIG have a bigger and better impact in the rest of their year was my biggest pushing point, probably.
What do you think, Lucy, for the students like yourself who do participate in Youth in Government conference every year or at least once, what is it that you think you've taken away so much from this experience?
It's a lot about responsibility, and it's a lot about the ways that participating in things that are academic can be fun. When we transitioned into virtual, I had a lot of friends who aren't involved in the program asking me if I was dreading the virtual conference, asking me why I had still decided to participate, and just pretty much everyone talking about it like it was a school assignment that I should be, doing my best to get out of. And for me, YIG has never been like that. It's always been something that I've enjoyed. From preparing beforehand and writing bills with friends, to being actually at the conference and interacting with everyone there, it's been something that I love. And so when we did go virtual, my biggest feeling wasn't dread. It was, a little bit of sadness that we weren't going to get to be in person this year, but it was mostly gratefulness that our amazing coordinators, Susan and Tyler and Elise, ended up figuring out a way for us to still have this conference.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, obviously, this was the only year that has been virtual because of the pandemic. And unfortunately, Lucy, it was your senior year. So you won't be able to participate in this again. But how do you think you'll be able to take what you have from YIG into your future life? Do you think you'll end up in politics or as a legislator of some sort?
That's the dream. From this year going forward, I definitely do want to stay closely connected with the YIG program. Former participants can come back in the form of conference staff, who are volunteers who just make everything run a little more smoothly. So I am already promising to be back next year. But as far as my future career, definitely YIG has been the proof that I've known since I was little that I wanted to be involved in politics, but YIG has been the proof that it's something that I will enjoy in practice and not just in theory. YIG has really opened my eyes to how amazing the feeling is when you realize that other people, that your words and actions are bettering the experience of other people. And actually at the end of the conference that we just finished up a few days ago, 2 legislators came to me and were talking about how much it meant to them that I signed their bill into law. And you get a little certificate when I sign your bill, with my signature at the bottom and my chief of staff's signature at the bottom and all of the details of the bill that's been signed into law. And it meant a lot. Me and my chief of staff had a conversation later that night talking about how emotional it made the both of us, seeing that this program is really important, not only to the people who have made it to that highest level of officership and clearly dedicated so many hours, but also to the people who are newer to the program, just the way that it instantaneously takes hold of you and becomes something that you're really passionate about.
Well said, Lucy. I mean, during our Children's Advocacy Days this year, we have folks from all across Tennessee, but also those who are a few from out of state this year who might not be as familiar with Youth in Government program. But if you wanted to say anything to those individuals about, especially those who have directly touched students' lives in some way, and if they maybe have a student in mind that they think this would be a good program for, why would you advocate for folks to get this out to students a little bit better?
That's a great question. YIG, I'll go ahead and tell you, my freshman year, So the TNCCE, the program that runs Youth in Government, has a sister program called Model United Nations that's run by all the same people, and I participated in that as well, which Model United Nations is at the very beginning of the year. So if you don't have knowledge of it before the school year starts, you're pretty much going to miss out on the conference for that first year. I did have prior knowledge of it, and I still almost missed out. And I was there right on the edge, one of the very last people to register. That freshman year, I didn't have a single friend who went with me. The entire time I was tagging along with my roommate, who I'm sure was thinking of me as a burden the entire time. But ever since that conference, it has been something that I've tried to get my friends involved with, and anyone who I thought would enjoy it. And to tell you the truth, there has not been a single person who has gone to conference with me and said that they've had a bad time. There's really something for everyone there, regardless of whether or not the student that you have in mind is someone who's very civically engaged and is going to have strong opinions on the bill and is going to be a great debater, or if they're a good writer and is going to be good at the writing element of it, or if they're good at photography and videography. There's a place for them in our press department for sure. There really is something for everyone. And for me, my biggest takeaway at this point, after so many years and dozens of hours of amazing experiences, are the friendships that I've made. I was actually texting with one of my close friends that I'd made through the conference just a couple minutes before I got on this call with you. And he was talking about how excited he is to see his little sister come up in this program, and how much he wishes that he'd known how important it would end up being to him when he was a freshman.
Well said, Lucy. Thank you so much for speaking so eloquently about that. I do have one more question, because as I mentioned, the audience for Children's Advocacy Days is wide ranging, and we'll also hopefully have some legislators listening in to our conference as well. And in saying that, after your recent experience with the Youth in Government program, and just given where we're at in 2020, this past year, as where we're at in social unrest and everything, if there's anything from your standpoint that you'd like to say to legislators here in Tennessee, what would you want to say, Lucy?
For sure, that's a great question. Something that's always amazed me about Youth in Government is how progressive our agendas are. This year at conference, among other things, we rebudgeted the police department, we created a vaccine rollout plan, we legalized medicinal and recreational marijuana and placed a tax on it. We created a way for certain types of taxation to specifically fund teacher pay increases. And for me, I think that YIG is a great way for legislators to see what motivates the youth. I think seeing how progressive our agenda has been and how passionate all of our students are about passing that agenda is something that I wish that I saw mirrored in the real legislature a little bit more often, to be honest with you. I think that the ways that we hold one another accountable to not only be respectful to each other's ideas, but to work to improve them instead of tearing them down is something that, you know, the legislators could really take a page out of the book of some of the delegates that I've been lucky to work with.
Gosh, thank you, Lucy, Elise, and Jonquil. I have a very special place in my heart for the Youth in Government program, and it was great to hear about all that you all continue to do. I'm so excited to welcome our next speaker, Commissioner Brad Turner with the Tennessee Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. Commissioner Turner was appointed by Governor Bill Lee in January 2019. Under Commissioner Turner's leadership, the department has been recognized nationally for its leadership in employment first and enabling technology as a means to provide full access, inclusion, and independence for people with disabilities. The department has also been recognized as the first state service delivery system to receive Person-Centered Excellence Accreditation from the Council on Quality and Leadership. I personally love to hear Commissioner Turner talk when he speaks about about adverse childhood experiences, brain development, trauma and resilience, and how that all intersects with their work. As the father of a daughter with intellectual and developmental disabilities that inspires him every day, Commissioner Turner is passionate about advocating alongside people with disabilities and their families. It makes me so happy to be able to introduce you all to Commissioner Turner, and I will pass over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Can you guys hear me okay? I was having a little phone trouble earlier. Perfect. Got some thumbs up. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be here today, to be able to speak to you. Thank you for reaching out to me and inviting me to speak to this. And Richard kind of keyed in on. I'm very passionate about not only this topic, but how that topic blends itself into our world, serving Tennesseans with intellectual and developmental disabilities in any manner that we can, whether it's programmatic or whether it's relational, whatever that looks like. I'm very excited to be here and really looking forward to some of what we're doing and sharing some of these ideas and conversations with you about how we can continue to be better partners all across the state of Tennessee. As Richard said, first and foremost, I'm a dad. So my daughter Kinsley is 14 years old and she has intellectual and developmental disabilities. Absolutely the love and joy of my life. My wife Rebecca and I have been married for over 20 years. Kinsley keeps us on our toes, but she has created a wonderful community of people around her that support her and are allowing her to work to achieve her own vision and her own goals and her own dreams about what her life should look like. And that all ties in nicely to what you're doing and what you're believing and doing around building stronger brains and adverse childhood experiences, and how do we continue to help Tennesseans and children specifically as it relates to adverse childhood experiences. And so I know that Samita and her team have a slide presentation for me. Samita, I can't see it. Is that pulled up on the screen yet? I know it's coming up, but I wanted to walk you guys through. There you go. And I appreciate you pulling that up. We can move forward on a couple slides. But as we're getting that set up, please, ask questions in the chat, whatever I can do to try to provide some answers and context and more information about what we do. I want you to be very comfortable with what's happening inside DIDD. And there's our mission and vision right there, what's on the screen. Our mission is to support all Tennesseans with intellectual and developmental disabilities to live the lives that they've envisioned for themselves. And then that naturally transitions for us into what that vision is, and that's become the nation's most person-centered and cost-effective state support system for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that's really what we're doing. Tennessee is really on the cutting edge. And many folks find it surprising that we are one of the more progressive states when it comes to service delivery, how we're utilizing technology, opportunities for employment inside Tennessee. And I'll kind of touch on that a little bit when we get there. Samita, if you can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. And so our right now, the home and community-based waiver services. So we operate 3 different waivers inside the state of Tennessee for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Right now, we serve a little over 7,100 people that are inside the waivers. And historically, just to provide some background, within the last 10 years, really within the last 6 or 7 years, Tennessee has been deinstitutionalized. So historically, adults in Tennessee were actually housed inside institutions. And those institutions, there was a federal Department of Justice lawsuit that thankfully we began deinstitutionalizing. My predecessor, Commissioner Payne, worked very hard with the Department of Justice and other private providers around what a state like Tennessee could do to deinstitutionalize, where we began moving individuals into the communities and providing natural support settings for them to be able to thrive. And so relatively recently, all of that happened within the last 6 or 7 years. I think it's very important to remember in the context of what our whole mission and vision is for the program, that a lot of the folks that we're supporting for the first times in their life have actually had the ability to make their own decision on something as basic as where do you want to go to eat? Where do you want to go to live? What do you want to do with your friends? Where do you want to work? And that is brand new to them. And so we're still decades and decades behind in really where we need to be. So historically, the civil rights movement in the late 1960s was focused on gaining independence and voting rights and eliminating discrimination and creating a form of equality for persons of color. Persons with disabilities were actually not really included in the original civil rights movement in the 1960s in the United States. That happened much later as we began to move into deinstitutionalization that began in the 70s and 80s. And Tennessee finally got there. And there's still some states that don't have that, that they still have individuals inside institutions. But we're working in our own to try to help create a model for other states to follow to kind of break out of that mold. So second part of this, the family support program. So it's a state-funded program. It's all state dollars that help a little under 5,000 Tennesseans with very basic needs or whatever they see that their needs might be inside their home and in their communities. And so this program serves both children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The previous mention that I made of the HCBS waivers is for adults only, but the family support program was created about 25, 30 years ago to support children as well inside the state of Tennessee. Extremely popular program, extremely valuable program for what we're doing, but working very closely with families because it gives them a lot of flexibility, specifically for children to identify needs. And some of those can come from adverse childhood experiences. So obviously those that are closest to the child would know the history of what's happened to that child and ways that they can use those dollars to best serve that child. One of the areas that I'm really excited about that you can see on the screen in in PowerPoint is the enabling technology portion of what we're doing. So right now we've got about 120 Tennesseans with disabilities that use enabling technology, whether it's to live independently, to work independently, to function in their community, or even basic forms of communication and travel. So you can read right there that it automated medication dispensers, allows them to be reminded when they might need to take their medicine. So one of the focuses that we've done inside Tennessee is continue to work with Tennesseans that could benefit from technology and allowing them to live independently. On our website, on our YouTube page, on our Facebook page, our Twitter page, if you don't follow those, I would encourage you to go out there and follow those because we promote videos of persons supported that for the first time in their life might live in their own apartment or their own trailer or their own house. And technology actually benefits them and allows them to be able to do that. And we've got 2 model homes right now, one here in Middle Tennessee and one in East Tennessee, that we welcome guests, we welcome visitors, we welcome parents, we welcome providers to come see what the technology looks like, to create a feeling of safety and independence and reassurance to loved ones and caregivers and conservators that your individual that you've got a relationship can live on their own, and here's how we help them live on their own. So I'm very proud of what we're doing there. In fact, we've got a meeting this afternoon. I was looking at my schedule earlier with the state of New York. The state of New York is wanting to learn more about technology independence. So I'm meeting with my counterparts and several individuals from Governor Cuomo's office around what does this look like and how can we make sure that it's scalable, or what is scalable rather inside the state of New York as it relates to what's going on in the state of Tennessee. So really excited about, the potential for enabling technology. In fact, this year in our budget, we actually asked for an additional increase in enabling technology, and we're hoping that gets funded. So we'll see what happens with the legislature, but I think we got a pretty compelling argument about why it's important. You can move to the next slide. So our intermediate care facilities are what we call ICF for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we have 37 4-person homes right now in all 3 Grand Divisions, Middle Tennessee, East Tennessee, and West Tennessee, for people with intellectual disabilities. Really what's key when you focus on these homes is a lot of the individuals that we support in these homes have significant medical complexities. We have a home in West Tennessee that is for persons supported that are all on ventilators, might require 24/7 nursing, different sorts of needs based on their medical conditions and the severity of it. The majority of these folks that we support have very severe medical diagnosis, and so obviously we create an environment for them to be supported. And a number of these folks all came from institutions. So historically, they were involved in institutions. We've now moved them into homes in the community where in many cases they're thriving, and folks in the community actually reach out, and there's good partnerships between what the state does and working with citizens in the community around that sort of community engagement. The Harold Jordan Center. Harold Jordan Center is actually the only facility in the country that does what we do as it relates to forensic and behavioral stabilization inside the ICF service model. We've got 24 homes there. We work very closely with our clinical services department around how do we provide services around behavior and stabilization for individuals that might have intellectual developmental disabilities that are in crisis. You know, a lot of the things that you sometimes see in the news are things that we're working to try to prevent, where right now, when there's an incident that might happen with a person with an intellectual or developmental disability, the first instinct is to call the cops or call 911 to say we need help. And we're working very closely with law enforcement all across the state of Tennessee in creating a program that will allow them to have the proper training and how to deal with those situations and diffuse those situations and de-escalate instead of escalate. We're creating some mobile behavioral teams that can be reached to help meet a person when they're in crisis. Some of those individuals, as it relates to this discussion, come from very adverse childhood experiences, whether there was some form of abuse or whether there's some form of environmental concern relative to the behavior or the environment that they were raised in. We want to work very closely with police departments and with emergency services in allowing them to gain a better understanding of how they need to interact with our population, because those things, as we've seen all across the country, can turn very bad very quickly. And we appreciate law enforcement. We appreciate emergency services and what they do in our communities. We just want to be a good resource and a good ally and advocate on how they continue to get a better understanding of their interactions and how they impact our population. And then finally, our seating and positioning clinics. So we operate 3 seating and positioning clinics in all 3 regions that manufacture customized wheelchair seating and positioning devices to support people with physical complexity. So there might be scoliosis or some sort of diagnosis that has occurred as a result of having a developmental disability. We operate mobile clinics. So what we do is we have a standalone clinic where folks, if they have transportation, can come set an appointment at the clinic, or we create mobile clinics where we can go to them. As you guys all well know, our rural Tennessee doesn't have the medical clinics or some of the medical networking that Nashville might have, or the surrounding areas might have in bigger cities, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Memphis, Clarksville, Nashville. So we create a way to go to them, whether they can't travel or be transported because of their disability, or whether it's just more convenient for us to go to them. We create a clinic that creates those types of devices to help people that oftentimes changes the way that they digest food, whether they have posture issues and their breathing, and it impacts their overall physical well-being. We've got seating and positioning clinics that do that. And it's really a tribute to the state of Tennessee that we've created something like that, because it is changing lives. And we've gotten very nice success stories and pictures of before and after of individuals that have participated in this program, showing us the benefits from a health perspective, and obviously from a mental and emotional perspective. When your body feels better, you tend to feel better yourself, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And this program and these clinics have changed the lives of Tennesseans because of these things that we offer. So very excited about that. Next slide, please. So Tennessee Early Intervention System, which I know is very near and dear to your hearts as it relates to children. TEIS provides services to infants and toddlers with disabilities or developmental delays. The TEIS program is critically important to supporting young children and their families reach their optimal development. You can see that right now, last year, we served about 17,000 children, and that was in the midst of a pandemic. So I'm very happy with that. But one of our goals that I've challenged Assistant Commissioner Dr. Gabrielle Madison is, how do we make sure that we catch the children tomorrow that we missed today? Because what we don't want to do is continuing to have children slip through the cracks. So we're trying to figure out ways to work very closely with communities, with pediatricians, with families, with individuals that are inside our population and outside our population, to let them know that the TEIS program is available. One of the things that makes the TEIS program unique is anyone can refer a child. It does not have to be a doctor. It does not have to be a parent. It does not have to be a caregiver or a conservator. anyone can refer a child. So if you know or are aware of a child in your neighborhood that might have developmental delays, you can refer the child, and it's to no cost to the parents, no cost to the conservator or the caregiver. This is fully funded by state and federal government, and it has been an incredibly beneficial program for Tennessee children. And obviously, when you have a child that might come from an adverse childhood background or experience, there can be delays, there can be trauma related to that. TEIS is a program that I would strongly encourage you to look into, not only if you've got children that you might have concerns about, but if you know of children that you've got concerns about in your community that might not have a stable network of support. TEIS is built for that. My daughter went through TEIS, and you can start as early as 6 weeks old. So that's the earliest one we had last year. They started at 6 weeks. You can start earlier if you want. Goes all the way up to 3 years. But it's a very beneficial program in Tennessee. So I encourage you to look into that. Consider that as you're working through some of these challenging childhood experiences and working with your network of individuals that have been impacted by that. It's a great program to consider if you believe that the child would benefit from that. And we've got overwhelming success in the data that says children do. In fact, as we move to the next slide, right around 81 or 82% of the children that participated in TEIS found themselves up to grade level with their peers by 3rd grade, which is something that we're very proud of. So these bullet points right here just kind of touch on what I was just talking about. Children are eligible from birth at their 3rd birthday. TEIS offers physical, occupational, speech, and developmental therapies. Whatever the need of the child is, they try to align the program plan to make sure they meet the need of the child. Again, TEIS services are provided to children at absolutely no cost to the families. That is important. We have translators. If you've got a family where English is not their natural language in the home, we do have translators available that can help with that. We're always looking for new partners in the community to work with us, especially in rural areas. So if you're involved with, a provider that's in a rural area, or you know a provider that might be interested in this, please let us know, because a lot of these children that are in the more rural areas, Appalachia, Northeast Tennessee, South Central Tennessee, that are not inside a metro area, really don't have the same opportunities that children that are in those metro areas have. And then TEIS finally focuses on the child and on the family. And I want to be very clear here, because sometimes I think we do ourselves a disservice in having very challenging discussions about what this looks like. And I've shared this. We've got 9 different offices for TEIS all across the state of Tennessee. And I've shared this as we've gone to the different areas. It is different for a child that's raised in inner city Memphis than it is for a child that's raised in Brentwood or Williamson County, or a county that's very affluent. It's just a reality, whether it's a white child versus black child versus Hispanic child, whatever that looks like. We need to be very honest with ourselves around circumstances, environment, in creating programs and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, because the feedback that I get from Memphis about some of the challenges that they have is completely different than the feedback that I might get from Chattanooga or from Johnson City, Tennessee. I think when we challenge ourselves to have those very difficult conversations, we open up a new area for dialogue, and we open up new areas to have idea sharing and very prosperous discussions around what does the next step look like? How do we continue to evolve as a program? When we do that, we benefit the child, because at the end of the day, every parent that's involved in our program just wants their child to be able to succeed and thrive. And it's very difficult sometimes for parents to accept the fact that their child might need a little bit of help. We try to create an environment for them where we say it's just like your child plays baseball and they might not be the best batter. All you're doing, you hire a hitting coach to help them be the best batter that they can be. That's exactly what TEIS is you want your child to have people around them that can build them up to be the best that they can be. And whatever that's going to be, we strive to have them be excellent. And they'll get there. And we've got a wonderful team of folks inside TEIS to provide that sort of networking and that sort of opportunity and programmatic development for a child to be exceptional. Next slide, please. So anyone can refer a child to TEIS. You heard me talk about that earlier. It doesn't have to be a doctor, doesn't have to be a parent, but more than half of our referrals do come from doctors. So we're obviously always encouraging that in the medical community to remember TEIS, remember what that looks like as they refer children, that there are services that are available for a child provided through the state. We work through the network of contracted providers, very similar to what I just talked about earlier. We're always looking for new providers in rural areas and those that are interested in providing these types of supports to children inside the program or that would be eligible for the program. We need them. We want to work very closely with them. And then as the child transitions out at age 3, they will be eligible to continue those services through their local school district. And there's a natural transition that is part of the TEIS experience from TEIS into the Board of Education and conversations that happen there. Next slide, please. So our goals are very simple with the Katie Beckett program. Some of you might not know about the Katie Beckett program. This was a program last year that passed, 2 years ago that passed the Tennessee Senate and the Tennessee House. And for the first time in Tennessee, Tennessee has the Katie Beckett program. It's a federal waiver created under President Ronald Reagan in 1986 that would allow children to receive services inside their homes as opposed to in the hospital. And so there's cost savings to that, but it's also an opportunity for the child to thrive outside of that setting and in a more natural setting in their home. So the goals of this program sound simple, but they're really, really complex from the perspective of we're very passionate about it. And while the goals are simple, what we do is we challenge ourselves every day. We want to assist families in purchasing and maintaining private insurance. We help fill those gaps with the child's needs and what private insurance will cover, including wraparound services. We delay the need for Medicaid eligibility where possible, so the child can have the program much more tailored to them in a way that benefits them in what they need based on whatever their disability and the services they may be required to allow the child to reach their peak performance and their peak ability. And we serve as many people as possible with approved funding. So one of the challenges that we run into is very similar to what you hear all across the state and the country. Dollars are not infinite. It'd be great if they were, but dollars are finite. So in the program that we've got right now, our goal is to serve around 3,000 children inside Tennessee that from birth to 18 years old that will qualify for the Katie Beckett program. And then ultimately what we want to do as a result of that is provide flexibility, try to remove the red tape, try to remove the strings that are attached to those dollars to make sure that parents can utilize funding on services that their child needs the most and items that their child might need the most. Next slide, please. So the program is for children under the age of 18 with disabilities or very complex medical needs. The program has 2 parts. It's divided into a part A for those with significant disabilities and extremely complex medical needs. And then you've got children that are in part B, which is designed as a Medicaid diversion program, where our goal is to serve up to 3,000 children inside the current budget. You can see right now the part A has about 8 enrollments in it. Part B has around 456. That's on the right-hand side. The way that we budgeted it was to try to make sure that we had dollars for 300 children to be eligible for Part A and 2,700 children to be eligible for Part B. So we're still working through that process. I think we've had almost 1,000 Tennesseans reach out to look at eligibility, to begin the process of registering their child, to go through the eligibility process for Katie Beckett. But we want 2,000, we want 3,000. We want to make sure that families are aware of this. And obviously the children that might have adverse backgrounds that have led to some very challenging circumstances for them, whether it's from abuse or led to a disability or some of the things that these children experience, you need to be aware of the Katie Beckett program, because that's something that might be able to help this child in the same manner that TEIS does that. And then finally, on the last bullet point, we did not just create this program as a government body. We heavily invested in traveling the state, working extensively with stakeholder groups, with our partners at TennCare to get feedback about what does this program need to look like. So we worked with individuals that are parents, we work with individuals that are caregivers, we work with providers, we work with other government agencies to really create a program that we're very proud of, that had those that would know the best creating the program. I think sometimes we confuse the fact that we're in government means that we're going to know the best way to do something, and that is not the case. We need to make sure that we engage in private areas, private communities, private providers, individuals that are citizens of the state, to give us context about what that needs to look like. And we did that. And that program is rapidly underway, and we're continuing to enroll new people every day. So I'm very excited about that. So I think now if you move to the next slide, I'm happy to stop for any questions about my department, about me, what we do, try to provide some answers to you about what we do, and any questions you might have for me, either at the state level in my role on the cabinet as the commissioner of the department, or anything that impacts children in Tennessee, or things that you're passionate about. I will stop and wait for some questions. But thank you again for allowing me to present. I enjoyed it.
Commissioner Turner, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning. But even more than that, thank you for all of the critical work that you and your team are doing just across the state. Know how much we value and appreciate you. So what we will do is, if we get any questions from anyone, we'll kind of compile those and get them over to you, and then we'll get them back. So information back to everyone else. So thank you so much. We appreciate you and look forward to working with you in the future.
Likewise, thank you. Have a great Friday. Thanks again for having me.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
I am so looking forward to our next agenda item as well. We all know that our Tennessee legislators have always been such an important part of Children's Advocacy Days, typically through their participation with the networking reception when we're in person. We're so thankful that today we have 3 of them participating by video. We are honored to introduce Representative Mary Littleton, Chair of the Children and Family Affairs Subcommittee, Representative Jeremy Faison, Vice Chair of the Children's Caucus, and Senator Ferrell Haile, Chair of the Children's Caucus and Vice Chair of the Health and Welfare Committee. They'll be discussing their personal experiences with adoption, as well as their work addressing drug abuse among youth and parents and human trafficking. They will also provide some insight into the work occurring in their committees, and we're so excited to hear from them.
I'm Mary Littleton. I serve the 78th District. I feel very honored and privileged to do that, which is Dixon and Cheatham County. And I've been here in the House. I started my 9th year. I was born in Michigan. I told that today in state government. Everybody's a little surprised, but I was born in Detroit, Michigan, but I've been in Tennessee since I was 2. I was raised in Humphreys County and then moved to Dixon County.
I want to know a little bit about your work with the Children and Families Subcommittee. You're the chair. What made you want to get involved in that?
Well, when I came here in 2013, we were still at the Legislative Plaza, and it's like a maze over there. If you haven't been there, it was. And once I found my way around there, I decided that I need to find my way as a state representative and try and figure out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be here. So my mentor, Representative Coley, he brought me 2 human trafficking bills. And at that time, I had no idea what human trafficking was. And even if I even had an inkling of it, I didn't think it was here. So it was just a shock to know that's happening with our children and adults, but our children right here in the state of Tennessee. So he gave me 2 human trafficking bills to carry that year. And one of them was if a parent sold their child for sex, that once they were convicted, they lost their parental rights forever. And so that was when I knew that that was really happening, and that was when I found my place, that I wanted to be here to protect the children of Tennessee, not just in Tennessee, but protect the children. And being a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 5, it really made me want to work harder to make it a safer place for my grandchildren and their children.
What are your hopes in regards to that, or anything that you're working on currently that you're wanting or believe that it will make a better difference for children in Tennessee?
Well, what we did a couple of years ago is we passed a bill that if a person is convicted of aggravated rape of a child, and at that time it was 3 and under, that they would go to prison with no chance of parole. And that was like one of my proudest moments is when that passed. But then in the past year, we raised the age from 3 to 8. So anyone that is convicted of raping a child under 8 will go to prison for life with no chance of parole. And those are really, they're not pretty things, but they're things that mean a lot to me. And once we talk about it, it means a whole lot to all the parents and grandparents. Anyone that's interested in children, that's a great deal. It was a big accomplishment. We see it, we know it's happening, and I just felt like they should never see the light of day again. And it just meant a lot to me that it passed unanimously. I think on the floor I had 98 votes for that bill, and it just makes your heart feel really good when that happens. And I worry about the drugs inside the homes, the children that are drug exposed. We're trying to study them. There's an older study, but we really don't know the effect. That when I know that with meth, if you're an adult and you test over 50, then it's illegal. But some of these children have like 15 and 16 milligrams in their system, so what is that doing to them? And when they go to school, are they upset because they've been drug exposed, or it's in their system, or is it the trouble that they're having at home? So we do work on that a lot too. But drug exposed children it's my #1 pet peeve now.
Is there anything currently that you're working on that you really want people to be aware of or kind of watch as things kind of move?
There is. We're trying to change if a child is exposed to Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 drugs, that it will be changed to severe child abuse, and that means the child must leave the home until the parents can get themselves pulled together.
Any personal experiences that kind of motivate you in your work as a legislator?
There's several. My childhood was not the best in the world, and I think that I overcame that, and I think it helps me be a stronger person to understand, what's going on with children and what most people don't understand, because most people have a nice life, a good home life, and there are a few of us that don't and did not. I try to say to my committee, we want to save every child. We do. But if we can save one at a time, then that's what we're going to do, is try and save them one at a time. Because they're our most precious assets on this world, and they're going to be our leaders someday, and let's work hard to make sure that they're good leaders.
My name is Jeremy Faison. I'm from Cosby, Tennessee, God's country, the Smoky Mountains. I have 5 amazing children. I adopted one of my children, and I have a wife that's beautiful, and the Lord has blessed us. We have an incredible family.
At what point in your family did you decide, let's bring in someone else, adopt a child?
Well, we never actually we had 2 kids at the time, and DCS had taken in a child out of Jefferson City, and the foster parents went to church with us, and he was 13 months old, Gage was, and my wife was working the nursery the day that Gage came with his foster parents to church. And she told me on the way home, she's like, there was a little boy that DCS is in custody of, and he's very special. I want you to meet him. I'm like, why do you want me to meet him? She's like, you just need to meet him. I was like, all right. So I knew the foster parents, and I was like, hey, my wife wants to come over and talk to Gage. And I think we were all kind of like, it's a little awkward, but all right. So we went over there that Sunday afternoon. She'd worked nursery that morning. Sunday afternoon, we get there, and we just immediately hit it off with little Gager. And I had a son. They're 3 weeks apart. Gage was born on November 8th. My biological son was born on November 30th. They became buddies. Well, we started saying, we got permission from DCS for him to come over and spend the night some with us. And then his foster parents were going to have to move away from Cobb County. And we felt like he needed to stay in East Tennessee because that's where his biological parents were. And so we said, we're going to go through the PATH classes and become foster parents in Tennessee. And so it was like a 9 or 10 week course. Every Saturday we went and became foster parents, and we moved little Gager in. And one thing led to another, and for whatever reason, the biological parents just could not get their act together. The dad was completely gone and mom was struggling. So we realized that DCS was fixing to terminate some parental rights. And so we started praying about it, thinking about it, and realized, you know what, he just needs to be part of us. And so after the state moved in, took sole custody of him, we set out to do the adoption, and by the time he was 3 years old, he was my son. And it opened my eyes to the plight of children that, for whatever reason, are stuck in a bad situation. And that's why one of the reasons we started the Adoption Caucus.
How does your personal experience help you advocate for those families who might be considering adoption or possibly fostering? Do those people reach out knowing that you're so involved?
Right, yeah, I've had several people reach out to me about fostering, ask me questions about it, and we do have to be honest. Fostering's not all roses and unicorns and rainbows. There's some real legitimate work that goes in. When you take in a child in your home that's been through some real stuff, that came from a drug situation or came from an abuse situation, you're bringing in somebody who's hurt, bad hurt. And with that hurt, let's be honest, there comes some baggage. But here's what I have noticed. We in America become very self-centered. Our culture is a very me culture. You will, when you start to serve and love and give somebody who hasn't necessarily received love the correct way, the reward, it can't be bought. The reward can't be explained. The personal satisfaction that you get down deep in your soul, knowing that you were a small part of rescuing somebody that was destined for a bad situation, and you were part of that. And then the bond that grows. And I was just telling my son the other night, we were talking, and I have 4 boys and 1 daughter. All 4 boys are athletes. All 4 of my boys are. They're all fishermen, they're all hunters, they take after me, kind of free range guys. I get as much joy out of watching my Gage play soccer as I do my Reagan playing basketball. When I watch them, he's been with us now for 14 years. I don't see a difference in him. To me, I love him just like I love my other boys. I look at them the same. And when you realize that that's what takes place, that you have a biological son and you have an adopted son, and because of the life that you've grown together and spent together, you look at him, he's my boy. I mean, when I see him out there fishing, or he's an incredible shot with a rifle, he wants to be a sniper for the military, man, I just have the sense of pride that wells up in my heart, because I'm like, that's my boy right there, you know. And that's the same thing I feel when I see my other sons doing well. It's yeah, there's some trials, there's some troubles, but when you do it right and you love selflessly, the reward is exponential. It's great. And the Adoption Caucus, I feel like we're going to be able to study and create some type of atmosphere that realizes, hey, you've got some struggles, we get it. Everybody goes through these struggles. Let's talk about it. What can we do to be a help with each other? And then what can we do to make Tennessee more friendly when it comes to foster, more friendly when it comes to adoption? And you know, it costs so much money to adopt. What in the world? Why are we doing this? We've got to figure out how to cut some of these people out who think they need to make money on somebody else that's wanting to actually help a child. So I feel like we're fixing to start some conversations that maybe upset some people, but we always have to remember that our decisions are not based on us or this corporation or this business. Our decisions should always be what's right for this child. When you start taking out the money equation and making your decisions as what's right for the child, you're going to change policy. You're going to do something right for these kids here in Tennessee.
My name's Ferrell, Haile. I serve in the 18th Senate District, which involves all of Sumner County, all of Trousdale County, and a small portion of Davidson County. I grew up farming with my dad in Sumner County. The only time I left was when I went off to pharmacy school. Came back home and quickly opened up a independent pharmacy and practiced pharmacy and helped my dad on farm, and then took over the family farm. Married my neighbor's daughter, We actually live on her great-grandfather's farm right now, and my dad's farm's across the road. So we combine those two farms together. We love the farming life. My wife Kay and I are adoptive parents. Our fourth child is adopted, and she's been a blessing to our lives. We have 2 little grandchildren that look a lot like her. She's Korean, and so it's just been a blessing to our life. We have 8 grandchildren total, and still live on the farm, and I'll go home this afternoon and put out some hay for the cattle, make sure they have plenty of hay to get through the week.
When you met your wife and were beginning a family, what was that conversation, or when did you guys know that you're looking towards adoption possibly?
My wife and I had 2 children, and after the second child, then 7 years later, we had another child. So it's like having 2 families within the same family there. And we had some friends at church that had adopted a Korean daughter, and we watched her for a time period, and then went to visit them one Sunday afternoon, and our comment was, we want to come and talk to you about something. And we weren't even thinking about it, but the couple we went to see thought, oh, they're coming for Amway. They're going to do one of these type promotion things, you know. And when we told them what we were there about, they just broke out laughing. And we had a good discussion about the adoption process and what took place. I was more interested in that than my wife was, to be quite honest, at that time. I was, yeah, let's go. You know, this is something we can do. We can provide a home. We have the resources and we have the love. I'm all go, really. My wife is more hesitant, and the reason is that I worked a lot, and she knew that she was going to take most of the responsibility. And so, you know, and I respected that. I understood that. Didn't speak very well of me, but I understood that. So we get the notice. We first get a picture of her. We get the notice. I think it was within 24 hours that she would be landing in Memphis. So we took a plane down, and all the family, the children went with us down to pick up our new daughter. And we're waiting in the airport, and the whole airport in Memphis knew what was taking place. There were balloons, there were grandparents, you know, it was just a large gathering, and everyone in the airport knew what was taking place. And as they came over the announcement and said the plane's 5 minutes out. And, excuse me. It hit me what we were doing at that point in time. And I go over in the corner and sit down. I've turned white. I'm thinking, what are we doing? What have we done, you know? But Kay, bless her heart, she was all into it flat out. And she spotted me over there in the corner and came and you know, we visited during that 5 minutes. And of course, when I got Melody in my arms, well, that took care of all that. And every time I tell that story, I get touched by it. But she's been a blessing to our life. And so I think about how many children are out there that need homes, that can be provided homes, whether it's through foster care or whether it's through adoption. I've worked really hard with safe baby courts to get those established, where that we're taking care of the children first. And I don't mean any disrespect to parents that are not parenting, that the children have been taken over by DCS. But I'm not willing to allow a child's life to be destroyed while we wait for I'm going to use the term, a delinquent parent or parents getting their act together. I want to give them a chance. I want to surround those parents with all the services that are possible to help them get their lives together where they can raise their children. But I'm not going to do it forever. You know, we've got a time frame. ACEs talks about the child's brain development, first 5 years, 80% of the brains develop. You take 3 years, which is the national average of getting a child to a permanent home. It's 3 years. You take 3 years out of 5. Look what you've done for that child for the rest of their lives, what might affect them. I'm not willing to give up 3 years of child's life. Let's get this figured out in 9 months, which is the target of getting this done. You can make a difference. You can make a difference in a child's life. If you've got the wherewithal, the resources, if you've got a heart that's attuned to children and to caring for children and their development, look into foster care, look into adoption. There are a lot of children that need the benefit of you.
I would personally like to thank Representative Littleton, Representative Faison, and Senator Haile, who I understand is joining us today, for sitting down with me to make that video. I truly enjoyed my conversation with all of you. Now it's time for our next item. We know how important high quality, accessible childcare is for children's development, and I am happy to introduce our next 3 guests who will provide an update on Tennessee's childcare services. Jude White serves as Assistant Commissioner for Child Care and Community Services at the Tennessee Department of Human Services. In this role, Jude oversees several programs that include licensing and subsidy support for child care, the Adult Protective Services Program, Child and Adult Care, and a summer food program, just to name a few. Previously, Jude served as Executive Director of the Children's Cabinet for Governor and First Lady Haslam. With a law degree from Vanderbilt University, she brings a mixture of experience in judicial and private law, nonprofit management, and state government services. You'll also hear from Angela Webster. She serves as Executive Director for the Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee, or AIMHI-TN, a nonprofit launched in 2016, which strives to support infants and young children prenatal through 6 years old, and the adults who impact their early relational health, creating a higher and much brighter future for all. And finally, you'll see a video from Donna McConico. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Signal Centers, a nonprofit that promotes lifelong independence through services that focuses on disabilities and early childhood education. She aspires to be a visionary leader for her organization and her community. Her master's degree in education and counseling provide the foundation for her work in promoting equitable access to high quality early childhood education. McConico says she wants to help promote creative solutions to many of the challenges that face families today. And a fun fact, she met Elvis. So welcome Jude, Angela, and Donna to this year's Children's Advocacy Days.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. We are excited to be here. I'm excited to share with you all the story of the transformation journey we are on for childcare in Tennessee. So I think we've got a slide deck to pull up if we can do that. Thank you very much. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so just an overview of what I'm going to share with you all today. I'm going to introduce our transformation journey for childcare in Tennessee. We're going to talk about some important milestones, the vision for the future state of childcare, some short, medium, and long-term goals, explaining what will be different, and then some partner perspectives. So next slide. So this next slide is a short video that explains why we think this work is so important.
Babies in the beginnings of humanity grew up in these very rich extended families. So in that kind of context, caring for children, teaching them, just getting the work done that you need, they all take place at the same time. And of course, the world that we live in now is a very, very different world from that.
We have a society in which moms and dads both have to work to even support a family at all. The central problem is that the ability to provide that nurturing attention early in life is less than ever before.
Good job.
Minimum wage just isn't cutting paying bills.
We couldn't afford to put him in preschool. Donnie's with him all day and I'm with him all night.
Daddy, come on.
this notion of the American dream. That is fundamentally not happening.
Because of the fact that, you know, it took us that much to get her here, that putting her life in someone else's hands means so much.
1 year old. He can't say anything, he doesn't sit up, he doesn't walk.
When those markers are set in childhood, they impact the way our bodies work for the rest of our lives.
These are our children, our families in this country. Ignoring this and just going on as if it's going to correct itself, that's a disaster for us as a society.
This is not the way it's supposed to be.
We have a deeper understanding now of how important these early years are and why.
We're unlocking the secrets of the brain. First time in history. We never had a way to look into a baby's brain before.
What's going on up there is rocket science.
Babies' early experiences create the foundation for all that follows.
Yes! I want to be their Miss Honey. I want to be the one that's like, you can do anything.
They are doing the work that will really fundamentally make a difference for the outcomes of these young children.
I found a baby egg! This is amazing!
We need leaders in every community to step up and say, every child should have access to high-quality early education.
If we get this right, our country will look dramatically different.
Oh. Whatever we want to call it, childcare, preschool, home, we have to do it everywhere.
Thank you for showing that video. I always say it's very difficult to follow Cookie Monster, but that slide, I mean, that video really shows why this work is so important and why we are on this critical transformation journey for childcare in Tennessee. So the journey goes back to early 2019 when the Department of Human Services launched a new mission, vision, and value statement. And so our mission is to build strong families by connecting Tennesseans to employment, education, and support services. So of course, childcare is right at the heart of this mission. It's critical in order to have a strong family that you have access to childcare so you can maintain your employment, maintain your home. And so, and of course, what happens in early childhood care is that education piece. And then the vision is to revolutionize the customer experience through innovation and a seamless network of services. So the word revolutionize is very powerful to us. For us, it means it's not business as usual. We are constantly thinking about how do we improve, how do we innovate to make the childcare network stronger. And then our values are high performance, collaboration, continuous improvement, a shared vision, and customer-centered solutions. So if we go to the next slide. There we go. So these are the main services we provide through the Department of Human Services. So we provide direct supports for families. That's through childcare payment assistance for parents who are working or in school. We maintain childcare licensing. So those are health and safety requirements and quality assessment for licensed childcare agencies across the state. And then we do quality improvement activities and supports for childcare providers. So we're continuing to raise the level of quality for childcare in Tennessee. So next slide. Thank you. So following that new mission, vision, and values creation, we focused as a childcare leadership team to talk about our why. And we developed a why statement that every family should have access to quality care for children and adults. So that is our most foundational belief that drives everything we do. We also have our three main goals: to improve quality, increase access, and strengthen business efficiency. So everything we do, whether it's developing policies, launching new programs, launching new technology, it all drives towards that why statement and those three main goals. So next slide. And really a lot of transformation happened in the summer of 2018 when the childcare licensing rules were revised. We hadn't had substantial revision of the licensing rules for about 10 years. So it was a big collaborative effort to revise those rules. And it was a big time of transformation for the childcare providers as well as our staff, as everyone grew to meet these new expectations. But there was one particular really strong outcome from those rules revisions. There's a national organization that looks at all the state's childcare licensing rules across the country to see how strong they are in supporting healthy weight practices. And these are some direct quotes from their report. So those licensing revisions, I love the word, catapulted our state from 39th in the nation for strength of our licensing rules in promoting healthy weight practices to #1. So that was a huge leap. And at the time, they noted that our licensing regulations were currently the most supportive of obesity prevention and healthy weight practices in the nation. So we know other states are continuing to revise their rules as well, but those revisions in 2018 put us at the top of the list. And that's something to really be proud of as a state. Next slide. So other things that happened soon after those new licensing rules came out is in January of 2019, our Child Care Services Director convened approximately 300 stakeholders to discuss the Child Care Certificate Program and subsidy rates. And then in February of 2019, our Assessment Director convened a town hall with providers and stakeholders to talk about the quality assessment and quality rating system. We also did a survey at that time of childcare providers to gauge their interest in business academy training. And based upon some of that feedback, we engaged a national consultant to look at the quality assessment and quality rating program for childcare in Tennessee. We worked with that consultant through the summer of 2019. And at the end of that summer, in August and September, they convened focus groups with partners, providers, and staff to gain feedback about the big ideas they had developed for redesign of our quality rating improvement system. So next slide. So based upon that feedback and input, we started making changes for childcare in Tennessee. So in April of 2019, we increased those subsidy rates, the rate that we pay for children receiving childcare payment assistance in the certificate program. So we increased the rate by 35% for infants and toddler care and 20% for preschool and school age care. So we recognize it's more expensive to care for infants and toddlers. So we had a higher increase in that rate. And it had been about 10 years since we'd changed that subsidy rate in Tennessee. Then in the summer, July of 2019, we added some bonuses to those rates. So a 15% bonus for care that's provided in childcare deserts, in distressed counties, or for care during non-traditional hours. We wanted to incentivize availability of care in those locations. And then on the quality aspect, we launched several new initiatives to support and improve quality of providers in Tennessee. One is the Wages Program. That's in partnership with Signal Centers, and that is wage supplements for early childhood teachers, those educators who are in the classroom. It pays a supplement based upon their level of education and staying with their providers. So we want to continue to incentivize our early childhood teachers to grow their skills and to stay with their agencies so we can promote continuity of care. We also launched business academies in partnership with Signal Center. So those are free sessions that are available to childcare providers to help them with the aspect of running their business, like budgeting, accounting, human resources, marketing. We also are paying for the pediatric first aid and CPR training that providers are required to have according to the licensing rules. We knew when those rules passed, that created some additional burden on providers, and we wanted to address that. We also partnered with the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee to launch shared services and resources for providers. So those are things like templates for business policies, and as well as bulk purchasing support. So our providers can buy their materials at a lower cost. We also partnered with Community Foundation on an enhancement grant program. And these are mini grants, $4,000 or $5,000 grants that licensed childcare agencies can apply for to support continuing to improve their quality. It can be for materials, coaches, curriculum. So we wanted to give providers those tools to continue to improve their quality. And then we made a significant policy change in October of 2019 where for children who are participating in our subsidy program, we pay based upon the child's enrollment with a provider versus attendance. So this is more in line with how families who are private pay for their care. So next slide. And I mentioned we brought in that national consultant to focus on our quality rating improvement system. That's the system in Tennessee where we monitor and measure quality above those minimum licensing standards. It's the STAR program, the 1, 2, or 3 stars. It was launched in 2001 as one of the first quality rating improvement systems in the country. So we are one of the first in the nation. We are pioneers in that area. And the goals of the quality rating improvement system are to improve quality, to incentivize and then support providers in continuing to improve quality, and to provide helpful information to parents as they make choices. So next slide. So what came out of the work with that national consultant was some big ideas for redesign of our quality rating improvement system. So we're looking at a streamlined process for completing those assessments and ongoing engagement with providers to support a more accurate picture of quality. We had a system where the licensing team would go out several times a year, the quality assessor would go out once a year, and that would lead to the report card score and the quality rating. So we want to get to a place of a more ongoing picture of what's happening at each agency. And then we want to define program quality by the strongest predictors of child outcomes. There are many, many things we can measure, but what's really most meaningful in terms of child quality? And so we want to support providers with targeted relationship-based quality improvement coaching, financial supports to reinvest in quality for all programs, and we want to help families find care that's going to be the right fit for them. So those are the big ideas for redesign of our quality rating improvement system in Tennessee. Next slide. So when we think about the fact that our current quality rating improvement system launched in 2001, that's 20 years. So when we're talking about the redesign and the future state, we really are planning for the next generation. Next slide. So when we talk about transforming the childcare industry, we want to move away from seeing our childcare workforce as babysitters to seeing them as professionals. As DHS staff, we don't want to be seen as enforcers, we want to be seen as partners. For the report card process, we want to move away from just that single quality rating to a focus on continuous quality improvement. When it comes to our administrative tasks, we want to move away from being cumbersome and be more empowering. When we think about capacity, the availability of child care slots across the state, we don't want to be seen as an obstructor, we want to be seen as a child care creator. For payment assistance, we want to move away from simply a focus on access to care to access to quality. And also we want to move away from the idea of an isolated interaction focused on eligibility to a focus on continuity of care. Next slide. So we break this down into short, medium, and long-term goals. So in the short term, of course, we're still responding to COVID. So we suspended that annual quality assessment program back in March. It required extensive time in agencies observing normal operations. That just was not possible as COVID arrived in our state. So we created an interim assessment tool, and that interim assessment tool will remain in place through all of 2021 as we continue the redesign for the future state. We've been deploying a lot of COVID resources through things like pandemic essential employee payment assistance, temporary care locations for school-aged children of essential workers, and waiving copays for our child care payment assistance customers. We're focused right now in 2021 on this redesign for the future state of quality rating in Tennessee. So we're developing rules revisions to support the new approach. We're very grateful to have providers participating on that rules revision committee. We're doing a reorganization of our DHS childcare staff, and then we're increasing our technology supports. We're in an intensive time of modernization in how we interact with our childcare payment assistance customers and our providers. We're developing a new e-licensing system. And the goal is in 2022 to be fully deployed. that we will have our new technology and our new program in place, and our interactions will be modernized. Our interactions will be completed electronically, and we'll be able to focus more on customer relationships and quality improvement. So next slide. So I wanted to touch on our staff reorganization. This is a big initiative for us. I talked about the separate interactions that our licensing team and our assessment team would have with providers. So we are merging those two programs into one larger licensing program. So each provider will have that main point of contact for their agency. And the focus will be on that regular ongoing interaction and support to help that provider continuously improve quality and to really see the services that are being provided. We are reorganizing our staff to match the workforce development districts to better align our programs, including licensing and certificate. Next slide. We also currently have legislation pending. We are very grateful to our legislative sponsors and to all the legislators who are supporting this redesign. So this legislation supports redesign of our quality rating improvement system. It'll update the statute to allow for this new rating system, to merge licensing and assessment and decrease the regulatory burden on childcare providers. The legislation also removes the annual licensure fee for childcare providers to decrease the financial burden and focus more on that ongoing relationship. Next slide. So I think a lot more gears are going to show up there, but we have, of course, partners are critical to this work. Not only all the work and progress that we've made over the last years, but also where we're going in the future state. So typically you'd see a lot of different gears on here representing a lot of different partners, but we'll go ahead and move on because we've got one of our partners with us today, and that's Angela Webster from Ymca, Tennessee. And she is going to talk about their program's role in supporting childcare providers and also how she feels about the future state of childcare in Tennessee.
Hi, Jude. Really glad to be here with you and share a little bit about from our perspective and thinking about holding the baby in mind in all of this childcare transformation. I wanted to first, just to describe what Ymca does, show a quick PSA, a quick video that we've developed to explain our work. So let me share that really quickly. And see if this works well.
Scientific research has shown that our brains develop at a rapid pace in the earliest years of life. Positive relationships with adults during this critical time have a profound impact on brain development, providing the support and stability necessary for long-term health and well-being. The Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee concentrates on prenatal care to the child's 6th birthday by delivering education, training, and resources to assist caregivers, educators, healthcare providers, and other professionals in their everyday interactions with infants, young children, and their families. By focusing on early relational health, Ymca, Tennessee contributes to healthy communities and a productive workforce for generations to come.
So you can see by our video that much of what Jude has talked about has been about relationships with providers, about supports, about helping to ensure healthy, safe environments for little ones and for those that are providing their care, about families and the importance of ensuring that families and relationships are considered. And I think I've got a sound problem. There we go. So that's the focus of Ymca, Tennessee as well. And we're really pleased that over the last couple of years, we've been brought into the DHS CCDF family of partners to really help support childcare providers and our partners at Child Care Resource and Referral, TECTA, Child Care Tennessee, and others, in ensuring a focus on early relational health, infant and early childhood mental health, reflective practice, and all of those things that ensure that babies and young children are well supported in their relationships with adults and parents, families, caregivers. So we're really, really pleased to hear all of the news and see all of the progress that's happening. Really pleased to be a partner and looking forward to all of the impact on the current little ones and future generations based on all of this amazing transformation, and really pleased to be part of the conversations and DHS having such a focus on early relational health and so concerned about children's emotional and relational well-being as well. Thanks for having me with you, and I'd be happy to answer any other specific questions, but that's the nutshell about our views about the transformation.
Thanks so much, Angela, for sharing your perspective. We appreciate you and appreciate your partnership. And so, as you all have heard, it is a dynamic time for childcare in Tennessee and a time of active transformation. So we want to invite another one of our partners, Donna McConico from Signal Centers, has prepared a video. And so we are going to show that, and she's going to share a bit about her agency and her thoughts about the future state of childcare.
The Department of Human Services has been working for several years on transforming the culture and delivery of early childhood education services. The DHS partners have worked together to build collaborative, impactful efforts to support educators, children, and families. And DHS has strategically led the way, providing enhanced funding to families and providers, helping to elevate the workforce and provide quality care and education for children and families. And even in the midst of planning for change, they quickly shifted to respond to the need for expanded care and funding during the pandemic. Early childhood education focuses on providing opportunities to enhance children's natural curiosity, to build a desire and a basis for lifelong learning. At Signal Centers, we not only provide a high-quality DHS licensed child care program that includes children of all abilities and incomes, we also manage the Child Care Resource and Referral Network and Child Care Wages. Heather Hicks leads these initiatives to provide coaching, mentoring, and training to every child care provider across the state of Tennessee. She is going to share just a few of the recent initiatives that have helped to address challenges within the child care industry.
Hi, I'm Heather Hicks. With the investment and guidance of DHS, Signal Centers and the Tennessee Child Care Resource and Referral Network are able to provide the following services to improve quality. The Child Care Wages Tennessee program is an evidence-informed, outcome-driven initiative designed to increase the education and retention of the early care and education workforce through increased compensation. Education-based salary supplements tied to the successful completion of commitment periods in the same child care program result in a more stable, better educated workforce. The Small Business Academy promotes best practices and strengthens business operations by providing training and one-on-one coaching to new and existing child care agencies. This is an initiative that DHS started prior to the pandemic, but now, more than ever, it is essential that child care owners and operators have the tools to be successful. DHS listened when child care providers requested help to make sure they could fulfill the requirements that at least one staff member who is certified in CPR and first aid be on site at all times. By partnering with the CCR&R, DHS has committed to provide free CPR and first aid certification to all child care educators across the state. In order to continue to meet the training needs of child care educators, we moved to conducting statewide trainings online. We are looking forward to what the future brings as DHS continues to revolutionize the customer experience through innovation and a seamless network of services to improve quality, increase access, and strengthen business efficiency.
DHS has even more exciting initiatives on the horizon, and we can't wait to help roll out the next step in this transformation.
Okay, so you gotta love it when other people can start to quote your vision statement back to you. So we obviously have a team of really strong partners in Tennessee who are working with us on this transformation journey to meet those primary goals of improving quality, increasing access, and strengthening business efficiency. So just wanted to take this time to share with you all the picture of what has been happening in Tennessee and some information about where we're going. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I think we may have one last closing slide, but we just appreciate your interest in this important part of our Tennessee communities and hope you will continue in your role to support that quality early childhood education experience for every child in Tennessee. So thank you so much for having me.
Jude, Angela, Donna, thank you all so much for taking the time to be with us this morning and for providing an update on such an important issue facing children and families in Tennessee. We appreciate each of you and all that you do every single day. So thank you.
Thank you.
Much like the Academy Awards, we save one of the most important awards we present until the very end. In March of 2018, the members of the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth voted to create the Linda O'Neill Lifetime Achievement Award, perpetually honoring her memory and 30-year service as Executive Director of the agency. This award is presented every year to an outstanding Tennessean who has dedicated their life to improving outcomes for the state's children, youth, and families. Linda O'Neill was my boss for almost 20 years, and for me, she is equal parts role model, mentor, and friend, and every single day I miss sitting in an office next door to her. But for all of us, she set a very high bar for our work, and it's my pleasure to welcome Linda to present this year's Linda O'Neill Lifetime Achievement Award.
Hello, I'm Linda O'Neill, and I'm very honored to have this award named after me. Thank you to Richard and to the members of the Commission on Children and Youth for establishing this award and for the opportunity to present this award to the 2021 recipient. Judy Graham from South Pittsburgh, Tennessee will receive this award for her lifetime of work to improve outcomes for children, youth, and families in the state. Many of you know Judy from previous participation in CAD, Children's Advocacy Days, because she was always here, and it was always great to catch up with her and to catch up with many of you. This year I had the opportunity to talk with Judy by telephone before this presentation, and it was really good to talk with her. I miss seeing many of you and hope to see you again in the future. Judy is a native of Clarksville, Tennessee. She's a graduate of Austin Peay State University, certified to teach speech, journalism, and English. As a student at Austin Peay, she wrote articles about activities in the community for the Nashville Tennessean, and she was also elected to serve on the Montgomery County Commission. As a member of the Montgomery County Commission and participating in its statewide organization, she met her husband, Thomas W. Rusty Graham. They were married almost 45 years ago and moved to his hometown, South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, after their marriage. Rusty is a circuit court judge and has both criminal and civil jurisdiction. So Judy always liked to tell people she worked on the prevention end of services and he worked on the failure end. As a side note, I knew Rusty before I met Judy because he, as a law student, lived in the same apartment complex in Knoxville that I lived in as an undergraduate student. After moving to South Pittsburgh, Judy worked primarily in child protective services and foster care for the Tennessee Department of Human Services. She then directed a small program funded by the Appalachian Regional Commission aimed at establishing a model child development program that included children with disabilities in child care settings. Child Find activities were funded through a contract with the local school system, and the first licensed child care program opened in Marion County in 1978. When there was an opportunity for changes in the Head Start program in Southeast Tennessee, Judy submitted a successful grant application, and in 1985, began directing the Sequatchie Valley Head Start program, which serves 5 counties, began with 6 centers, and under her leadership expanded to the current 10 centers. Under Judy's leadership, Sequatchie Valley developed into an exemplary program. Judy's commitment to excellence in Head Start extends far beyond the Sequatchie Valley. She served for 16 years as president of the Tennessee Head Start Association, which brings together the 24 Head Start program directors in the state. For 4 years, Judy also served the Southeast Region 4 Head Start Association, covering 8 states, including as president and on the executive committee. She also participated on various groups with the National Head Start Association. Judy's care and concern for Head Start children and families and their needs for a variety of services contributed to her participation with other organizations, making important contributions to improving outcomes for children, youth, and families in social service sectors all across Tennessee. She participated with the Tennessee Association for the Education of Young Children, the state's Young Child Wellness Council, Chattanooga Women's Leadership Institute, Greater Chattanooga United Way, and as chair of the Greater Chattanooga United Way Committee for Marion County. Judy provided substantial leadership to strengthen the important infrastructure of services and supports across the spectrum by linking the Tennessee Head Start Association with the Tennessee Conference on Social Welfare in ways that strengthen the impact of both. Judy is a self-described extreme extrovert, and all who know her know the truth of this description. She and Rusty have been active in the community, and their sons, Brian, Blake, and Philip, live nearby, and they have 3 grandsons, Atchison, Spencer, and Carter. Judy retired from Sequatchie Valley Head Start in late February after a life well lived, loving, supporting, and nurturing children, youth, and families in Tennessee. It is with great pleasure that I join the members and staff of the Commission on Children and Youth and present the 2021 Linda O'Neill Lifetime Achievement Award to a very deserving recipient, Judy Graham. I congratulate her on both this much-deserved award and on her retirement, and I hope she enjoys retirement as much as I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda O'Neill, and also Richard Kennedy for the kind words you've expressed about my wonderful career at Sequatchie Valley Head Start. You know, I've put in my 42 years with the agency, and I'm looking forward to playing with my own 3- and 4-year-old grandchildren and looking at my beautiful view. This is my deck here in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Again, it has been a great lifetime of lucky work, I tell everyone, because I found exactly the right thing to do. Head Start is the best program ever, and I do have quite a bit of admiration for Sequatchie Valley Head Start. We operate 10 centers in a 5-county area, and I guess it's a bit of a surprise sometimes to our parents who enroll their child because they find out they're enrolled too. That's the best thing about Head Start. It's truly the first multi-generational program. It made it out of the war and poverty. This is the 56th year of Head Start. I haven't been there quite the whole time, but I certainly have been there a lot. I also have enjoyed my relationship with the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth, and I've always looked forward to child advocacy days because down deep, I do consider myself a real child advocate, and this is where you can get your batteries energized and get ready to get out there and keep fighting the good fight. So again, thank you to the Commission, thank you to Linda O'Neill, and this is a huge honor to be recognized for my achievement. Thanks again.
Thank you, Linda, and congratulations, Judy. We are so thankful that a record-breaking almost 2,000 of you all registered to participate in a Children's Advocacy Days unlike any other. I'm grateful for the time you spent with us this week, and we would love to hear your thoughts. In the agenda, there is a link to an evaluation. Let us know what you thought worked well and ways that we can improve in 2022. If you would like to re-watch any presentations, the video recordings of Children's Advocacy Days, along with any available slideshow presentations, will be available on the Children's Advocacy Days webpage at tn.gov/TCCY/CAD. The link is on the back of your agenda as well. For those of you who are Facebook users, you can follow TCCY and see the videos there as well. We are so grateful for your time, your participation, and your attention. I started Children's Advocacy Days by sharing lessons from Dolly Parton, and I'm going to close this out with another Dolly Parton message. She said, "I make a point to appreciate all the little things in my life. I go out and smell the air after a good hard rain. These small actions help remind me that there are so many great, glorious pieces of good in the world." It is my hope that Children's Advocacy Days highlighted the needs and opportunities that we collectively have to improve outcomes for all children, youth, and families in Tennessee. And I also hope that we were able to highlight, as Dolly said, so many great, glorious pieces of good in the world. Once again, thank you so much for joining us in this new virtual Children's Advocacy Days, and we appreciate you all. Thank you.